We're doing the fixed version of US 231. My video was just trash. The older version was trash. The fixed version, I just skipped some of my US highways and interstate, like 65 and 62, US 62. So we're just gonna fix the US Highway 231 video. US 231 is through Panama City, Florida, Dothan, Montgomery, Huntsville, Murfreesboro, Lebanon, Bowling Green, Kentucky, Owensboro, Lafayette, Crown Point, and St. John. So let's do this fixed version of US Highway 231. And we get a mention for US 231 mentioned. US 98 westbound is signed for Destin as we're heading into downtown. We're in Panama City. It'll head into Destin. And then for eastbound, we'll head into Apalachicola. And we get US 231 signed for Dothan, Alabama, which is a good choice. We get Interstate 10. Eastbound gets signed for Tallahassee, and westbound gets signed for Pensacola. All right. US 90 is signed for Chipley and Marianna. And welcome to Alabama, but we don't have a sign for Alabama. Yes, we get welcome to Sweet Home Alabama. Yeah, here we are. We get US 431 and US 84. Ashford and Headland. 84 West for Enterprise. And we get Ozark. So we're now concurrent with US 84 and 231. Yes, we get Ozark and Headland. So US 84 is signed for Enterprise. Okay. I should leave it signed for US 84. Sorry for that mistake, guys. So Ozark and Headline is for US 231. We get US 29 signed for Union Springs. So we get Laverne on there. We're signed for Montgomery for US 231. We get US 82 mentioned for Union Springs and Eufaula. So we're signed for Montgomery. So we're about to join US 80 eastbound. So we're losing US 82. 82 will head with US 80 westbound. So we get to Interstate 85 and Interstate 65 as well. We're losing US 80 eastbound. It'll join Interstate 85. 85 is signed for Atlanta, and it's signed for downtown Montgomery. So it's to Interstate 65. We get Interstate 65 for Birmingham and Mobile, and we're signed for Wetumpka. Wetumpka, we're signed for US 231 with Alabama Highway 21. We get US 280 eastbound, so we're joining westbound US 280. We're going to have a short concurrent and we're losing US 280. We're signed for Vincent, and it's signed for Birmingham for US 280. So 231 will head into Vincent, and the other side you get Wilsonville. On the bottom you can see US 78. We're about to head into Interstate 20. US 78 is signed for Riverside. Okay. So we do get a mention for US 78. I know US 78 West will head to Birmingham. Eastbound heads to Atlanta. We get Interstate 20 for Birmingham for westbound. Eastbound is signed for Atlanta, respectfully. Here's Odenville for US 411 South. So we're joining north for Asheville, Alabama with US 231 and US 411. Yes, US 411 is splitting off, so US 231 is turning left. Alright, we get a mention for Interstate 59. Northbound should not be signed for Gadsden. This should have been Chattanooga, Tennessee. And southbound is signed for Birmingham, which is a good choice. What? Here's US 11. South will head into Birmingham, and north will head into Attala and Gadsden. We get US 278 signed for Coleman and Gadsden. And we're signed for Arab in the Strait. We get US 431 for Governor's Drive. And US 431 is joining us. We get Interstate 565. It says to US 72. Signed for University Drive. We just get Cook Avenue and Oakwood. There's no mention for US 72 because we get signed. But on the other side, you can see US 72, but you just get streets for in Huntsville. And yes, US 72 East is signed for Max Luther Drive and Sparkman Drive. Okay, I just want to see Chattanooga. And then westbound should not be University Drive. That should have been Florence and Athens. And welcome to Tennessee. Because we're about to be losing US 431 to the Strait. So 231 will be turning right. And yes, US 431 is splitting off. It'll head straight into Nashville. 231 is turning right. Shelbyville, Lynchburg, and Winchester. Okay, for US 64. And we're signed for Shelbyville. In Shelbyville, we're meeting US... Oh no, we're going to turn left, I think. Now we get a mention for US 41A. Interstate 24 is signed for Nashville and Chattanooga, respectfully. We get Manchester for US 41 and Nashville. Okay. So we're going to join US 41. And we're losing US 41 and US 70S. So US 231 will join Tennessee 96 for Memorial Boulevard. We get Interstate 40 signed for Nashville and Knoxville, respectfully. Now we get a mention for US 70. Now we're joining US 31E for Westmoreland. And it's time for Gallatin for 31E. And welcome to Kentucky. And we're losing US 31E, so US 231 will head into Bowling Green. We get Interstate 65 mentioned for Nashville and Louisville, respectively. We get US 31W, says to Interstate 165. Now we get a mention for US 68. So now we just joined US 68, 230, US 231, and 68 are now together in Bowling Green. And we're about to be losing US 68. So US 231 is turning left. Now we get Interstate 165 for Owensboro. And we get Interstate 165 South. It says to Interstate 65. So 165 is on there. We get Interstate 165 signed for Bowling Green and Owensboro. And we're signed for Morgantown. And then we get Interstate 165 for Owensboro and Bowling Green. And we're signed for Cornwall, Kentucky. We're joining US 62 in Beaver Dam. And we're losing US 62. So US 231 will head into Owensboro. US 60 westbound will head into Henderson. And we're signed for Hallsville. For US 231, we get Interstate 165 South, signed for Bowling Green. We're losing US 60, so US 231 is heading into Rockport. It's signed for Lewisport and Halls. Oh, it's Hallsville. Okay. So I pronounce it Hallsville. And welcome to Indiana. We get Interstate 64 for Louisville, Kentucky for eastbound, and westbound is signed for St. Louis, Missouri, respectfully. Now we're about to join US 50 and 150 in Lagodi, Indiana. And we're losing US 50 and 150 in Lagodi. So US 231 is turning left. We get Interstate 69 South, signed for Evansville. Northbound gets signed for Indianapolis. Okay. We get Interstate 70, mentioned for St. Louis, Missouri, and Indianapolis, respectfully. US 40 is signed for Indianapolis, and Terre Haute for US 40. We get a mention for US 36 for Danville. That should have been Indianapolis. And we get Rockville. Here's US 36 that will take you into Indianapolis and Rockville. We get US 136. So we're heading to Interstate 74. Interstate 74 is signed for Indianapolis and Peoria, Illinois. We get US 52 joining us, and it's going to Indianapolis. So 52 is joining us. So we're in Lafayette, Indiana. We're losing US 52, so US 231 is turning left. Wait, no, it's turning right, actually. Not turning left. It's turning right to Interstate 65. We get Interstate 65 mentioned for Indianapolis and Chicago. So 65 South will head into Indianapolis, and 65 North will head into Chicago, which is a great choice. We're about to be meeting US 24 for Wolcott, and it's signed for Monticello. So we're signed for Rensselaer. We get Interstate 65 for Indianapolis and Chicago, which is still good. And we're losing US 24. It's signed for Cantlin, and we're signed for Rensselaer. We get Interstate 65 once again for Chicago and Indianapolis. And we get the last time for Interstate 65 for Indianapolis and Chicago. So we're about to head into Crown Point. Here we are in Crown Point, Indiana. We get US 41 for Cedar Lake. And US 41 is signed for Cherville. And yes, US 231 ends. So the fixed version of US 231 is coming out today. So peace out.